We get a view from Andrew then about what he thinks is going on. Actually, the interpretation of that data that I've just gone through. You can see the second video of that later. As I've said, I recorded it, but it's sheet 11 to sheet 19. Find out whether a lot of that really was from Kursk. So, Andrew, welcome, mate.
Hello.
Hey, mate. Thank you for this. I've gone through those 19 sheets that you've done because I'm a glutton for punishment, and I love looking at them. And there's definitely a lot of. I don't know if you're listening earlier. I was saying, look, combat asset losses are a bit of a misnomer because Russia uses all these other vehicles as combat assets. And when you add them in, it kind of skews things a little. But certainly for those 19 sheets, the Ukrainians were losing a lot of kit. Not like crazy high value stuff like we saw on that last sheet where there was those USVs releasing the UAVs and striking around Crimea and Kherson and taking out that incredibly high value stuff, but just lots of infantry mobility vehicles and similar every single day. Was that mainly due to Kursk?
A lot of it. So yeah, there were a lot of losses in Kursk, and they didn't all happen at once. Like,
yes,
a lot of them were happening like it was like the whole time.
Okay, that's exactly what I said earlier. Yeah,
like it didn't all happen at once. Like a lot of people are like, oh, they lost everything while withdrawing, and it's like, no. Like a lot of those Bradleys, we knew that they were damaged, like in September, and we didn't know what happened to them because you just see them get damaged and then you don't see them again. And then like several months later, like the Russians like drive a car down the road, and in the distance you can see the Bradley still there.
Yeah.
So it's like things like that. So it's like we knew that they were damaged, and we knew a lot of them were abandoned. But we didn't. They seemed like they were probably recoverable, so we never actually knew what would happen to them. And it turns out that a lot of them were just abandoned or destroyed.
Yeah.
So and then there was also the Rubicon did like a lot of damage on the highway, but they didn't destroy that much of value. They did destroy a Bradley. They destroyed probably like 10 or 15 MRAPs. Like they destroyed like a few Kirpies. Actually, like almost exclusively attacking Kirpies. I don't know why they don't like Kirpies so much, but and also Humvees and like pickup trucks. So like it wasn't like anything like super valuable. And then there was like a lot of losses like in Sumy. So there's like this one highway in Sumy that took like a ton of losses, and they lost like.
Is that on the way? Is that on the way to the Kursk sector?
Yeah. So it's like they lost like a lot of like MRAPs there, and they lost a lot of like M113s, and that part of the highway, like Russia's now captured that part of Sumy.
Right.
So like
is that Novenka or the way
like,
somewhere like that?
What's it called? Like Basivka or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's really good news that you say that, because like sometimes I wonder whether I know what the hell I'm talking about. And that's exactly what I said on my videos, and in fact earlier, which is these didn't all just happen during the withdrawal. When you withdraw, you get to see, the Russians will then publish, and you get to see all this stuff, and you go, right, but some of that's happened over the last 6 months type thing. It's exactly what you say. And the other point, which I made in the other video, was that so many of what Andrew and his team will list on his spreadsheets will then be repeated on the spreadsheets, not because it's a duplication, but because exactly what you just said is it was damaged here or it was abandoned here and then it's destroyed over here. So, and there might be a month between that. So you see it abandoned there, and then you get some footage of a drone dropping an IED on an abandoned piece of kit, and so then you go, now it's destroyed, and then in the description you put abandoned, then hit by an IED or whatever. So you are clearly saying that, but for someone like me, it might look like there's loads and loads of equipment, but actually a lot of that equipment is already been double entried.
Yeah, and then there's like there's losses in like Kharkiv and like South Donetsk, because like Rubicon was also operating in the Velika Novosilka area. So like all of the like logistics routes that are like north of Velika Novosilka, those were all under like pretty strong drone attacks the entire time. Although the Rubicon there weren't as good. They were not very impressive. They're like kind of just a normal drone unit. But they took out like a bunch of like Huskies and Bushmasters and like Humvees and like a few Bogdanas.
Yeah, it's really interesting seeing more and more Ukrainian-produced stuff, which is a reflection of the fact they are producing more stuff. So Bogdanas are appearing, and I think that's kind of a good thing in a way. It's not good, obviously, to lose anything, but that you start seeing more like Novotors and Ukrainian-produced stuff, it means that they are starting to gear up their production to be able to meet the needs of the front line. So there's a kind of a weird silver lining to that.
Yes, and not only is Ukraine producing, but Europe is producing. Like Germany is making a lot of that stuff for Ukraine.
What the Ukrainian stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the beginning of this video, top end of this video, I reported that Spain, Technova company, is now going to produce 3 like a medevac vehicle, I think an MRAP or something. Anyway, 3 vehicles under license from Ukraine, which I thought was an interesting thing. But obviously, they're doing that elsewhere, like you say.
Yeah. Like Germany is making stuff. I think Germany is making some of the chassis for the Bogdanas.
Right. Yeah.
And I think they're probably going to end up making a bunch of chassis for other things because, like, the German economy is really bad right now, and one part of your economy, crashing is that people stop buying trucks. So, like, logistics is often the first thing to crash, and honestly, a lot of MRAPs are just trucks with armor on top. So, like, these truck manufacturers are saying, like, no one's buying our trucks anymore. We have all this manufacturing capacity, and we kind of want to manufacture something. So they're just kind of like going to Ukraine asking if they want to buy some trucks.
Yeah, and like I always talk about, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's going to be an element of self-servingness to, obviously, like if we're going to help Ukraine, let's at least stimulate our own economy.
These deals, these are not the German government doing this. Like, the German government has nothing to do with it. It's just German companies doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the money, you can argue the money might come from the German government through the EU and then back round again. So, the money's coming from all over the shop. What's your view of the front line at the moment and the prospect for either side? Because I was just trying to give my opinion earlier, thinking, and I'm a bit all over the shop because, the Ukrainians have lost quite a lot of decent kit and they're not getting the American kit to help them. And I don't know what their recruitment is like and whether they do have the ability to ever do an offensive again. Yet there is potential for distant strikes, and the Russians are still like managing to get people running out of kit, but they're still throwing people. You don't need good kit; you can just throw them in on ladders and bloody party loafs. So, what's your opinion?
Oh well, the Russians are in really a lot of trouble right now. Like, people are really underplaying how much trouble they're in. Their infantry situation is pretty good. They have a lot of infantry. They don't have as a very high morale, I don't think. Their infantry is pretty low morale, and that's largely stems from their culture. They have a culture of abusing people, like treating people like trash. So the morale is really bad, but they have a lot of infantry. But the problem is that infantry are worthless unless they're in the right place at the right time. And that's why equipment is so important, because they get you to where you need to be when you need to be there. So right now, they're largely out of armor. Like they still have armor. They probably still have like 1 or 2,000 armored, significant armored vehicles left, and they are manufacturing a few hundred a year. So, but for all intents and purposes, they're really running out, and the armor that we're seeing, they come in batches. So it really appears that their armor is being either repaired or refurbished and brought in batches. Like, for example, the other day they did this huge attack with upgraded BMP2s. So what we think happened is either they took a bunch of damaged BMP2s, or maybe even destroyed BMP2s, and sent them back to Russia and refurbished them back to working condition, and upgraded them all the way to the most current iteration of the BMP2, which is the BMP2, I think 675 or whatever. So they took a whole batch of those and sent them to Chernihiv Yar, and did this giant attack and lost all of them. Just lost all of them. So
that was in Chernihiv Yar, was it? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're doing things like that. So so either those BMPs are really obviously newly refurbished. Where they came from originally, I would suspect that these were vehicles that were used in like Avdiivka or something, and they were damaged or even destroyed, because the vehicle, like even if it burns down and you just have a hull, like say everything is just on fire, everything's destroyed, they take the hull, send it back to Russia, tear everything out, put all new everything in it, and call it a new vehicle, basically. So that's kind of what I think happened, is they just took a whole bunch of those and refurbished them. Or it could have just been stuff that they had in a stockpile somewhere. I don't know. So
yeah.
But yeah, this is the sort of thing that they're doing right now, is they're refurbishing these vehicles. They can't manufacture enough. They can't really refurbish enough either. And they're just slowly losing out. And these light vehicles, they cannot replace armor. Light vehicles can be useful in certain circumstances where you need very quick attacks, but if light vehicles are coming, it's just ridiculous. Like, I don't know if you saw the attacks near Verkhnyo-Kamyanska, but they did a large attack with like 13 light vehicles. It was like all Ladas and stuff, and Ukraine defended the attack using Dipicum, using AGS, and these vehicles, they cannot withstand that sort of hit, and it just, everything got wiped out, and I'm not sure anybody even survived the attack. So, and they never even made it to where they were attacking. So, and that's another thing that you see a lot lately, is these Russian assaults, a lot of the assaults never even make it to the front line. There's this pretty humorous thing yesterday where IMI posted some geolocations of a Russian assault where all their vehicles were destroyed. And this guy, he messaged IMI saying the video has to be old because Russia captured all those positions 2 weeks ago. And we saw this and we were just all laughing. We're like, yeah, I guess that's proof of the Ukrainian advance then.
Yeah.
So they can't even reach the front line because these vehicles, they're getting just dominated. They don't have the armored punch to get through anything.
Is that predominantly because of drones, or is artillery playing at all of a role?
Well, there was this comment the other day. I think the 46th Brigade. I think they said in Andriivka, the Russians attacked there in Andriivka, and Ukraine repelled the attack with 600 artillery shells and 200 drones.
Wow, so interesting. So yeah, I mean, that is I mean, I don't have a frame of reference as to the ratios there, but it would indicate that the artillery is pretty damn useful still.
Yeah, and they said also that they said they use 600 artillery shells, 200 attack drones to repel the attack. Every piece of armor was destroyed. Every light vehicle was destroyed, and there were no Russian survivors.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's
and the attack was that arrow.
The attack was what? Sorry.
The attack was that arrow.
That arrow there. That one. That big long arrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not a single one of those Russians survived, and all their equipment was destroyed. Wow.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about Ukrainians' opportunity to be able to? Sorry, it's quite a bit of sound there. What?
Sorry.
Ukrainian ability to be able to take back significant amounts of land. Do you think that all they're going to be able to manage to do is take like small bits of land there and a bit of land here, but a major punch, a major offensive? Do you think the Ukrainians have the ability to do an offensive anymore?
They don't need to do an offensive.
Right.
What they need to do is wear out the Russians, and the Russians will leave on their own. They don't have the strength to defend. They can't defend. So, I mean, if Russia tried to defend right now, what would happen is what you're seeing right now. They would take tens of thousands of casualties per month. All of their defenses would be systematically destroyed, and they wouldn't be able to sustain it. They don't have the manpower to sustain that level of casualty. The natural attrition of what is going on right now is so great that they cannot passively fight. Their only option is active offensive means, because defense has become effectively impossible. So if they want to sit there and defend a line and build up a little trench or something, they're going to get absolutely massacred, and they're going to be forced to withdraw eventually. So
do you think the Russians lose more by attacking than they do defending? So that actually the Ukrainians to some degree are, I use the word carefully, happy. Are the Ukrainians happy to defend because it's actually more attritional than them actually gearing up an attack, which will lose them material and people to a greater degree than if they're doing active defense?
I mean, attacking is worse than defending, right? You're going to take more casualties attacking. But defending takes a ton of casualties, and when you're sitting there and you're not attacking anymore, because attacking also boosts morale. So when you're, especially in winter, so if you're attacking, like if you're just going to sit there defensively and you don't mean to attack anymore, like you have no goal of attacking, you're just sitting there, your goal is to survive. That's all you want to do, is just stay alive. And you're sitting in your little trench having drones attack you 24/7, your morale is going to collapse. You're not going to want to fight anymore, because every day you're going to have a 5 or 10% chance to die every single day. And over time, Russia just cannot sustain that. They don't have the manpower. You would need to be able to commit many millions of men to hold this defensively. Just sit there in a trench, like millions of men, and they don't have that.
Yeah. Okay, last couple of questions, if I may. What's going on in Belgorod? Because I've not really heard anything there for like 10 days now. And I was wondering if it was just a kind of flash in the pan, whether it was doomed to failure or whether it's succeeding, but it's just a much smaller objective, or like, what do you think is going on there and how's it going?
Russia is okay. So zoom in on those dots on the highway. Go north,
Please.
north.
Please.
North. North.
Oh, these ones.
Yes.
These ones.
Those dots. You see those dots on the highway?
Yep.
This is Russia's main logistics route. Okay. And if you look at like you can
I showed this video this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is their main logistics route. So this is what's happening to Russia, okay? So they're getting all of their reinforcements cut off, all of their logistics cut off, and Russia is trying to counterattack and retake everything, and they have retaken some parts. Like they are back into what's it called, Demidovka. Popivka is there's some evidence that Ukraine recaptured Popivka, and the Russians are in Demidovka, but they haven't captured it yet. In fact, they're taking a lot of casualties there, and they're taking a lot of casualties getting there. And you also have to keep in mind that there are no bridges to get here. Ukraine blew up all the bridges. Russia has been trying to lay pontoons, but Ukraine keeps blowing those up too. And there aren't many roads to these locations. These are actually pretty remote towns. So there's really only that one road. And also, a lot of the roads you see on the map here are not paved. They're like farm roads, basically. And it's really hard for Russia to do much. Like they're trying, but it's just difficult. You kind of have to drop off infantry like pretty far away and have them march forward. So
what's the end game then? What's Ukraine trying to achieve here?
Ukraine just wanted to create a buffer between Russia and Sumy.
Right.
That's all they wanted. It's not a very big buffer, but I think they'd more happily fight in Popivka than like Miropilia
in their own country. Yeah, and so with going up to here to Kursk, obviously the Russians are now coming down. Do you think they've got momentum to come down further?
It's so hard for them, because if you look at Sumy is a really difficult place to attack. It's really a defender's dream. So there's these really dense forests and very few roads, and the roads are very spindly. They're very long, narrow roads, often traveling very long distances through forests. So it's really difficult to attack Sumy. So there's like this border region that Russia could capture in Sumy, but once you get past that border region, it's you get closer and closer to these forests. And these forests are flanked by these trench systems, and it's really difficult to attack. It's probably one of the most difficult places to attack. I mean, recently there's been Ukraine's been talking that they expect Russia to attack in Chernihiv later this summer, which I think they've said that every single year so far, and it hasn't happened yet. But
they do have a tendency to say, "Oh, the Russians are going to attack here. They're going to attack here." And it never quite happens. You wonder whether they believe it or whether they're psyopsing or whatever.
Well, I know that they really thought Russia was going to attack Sumy, and that's why they attacked Sucha. But I think Russia still wants to attack Sumy, but I don't think they have the capability. They don't have the military power, at least not to be successful.
Yeah.
I don't think Russia really has the power to be successful doing much of anything anymore. They've really kind of Russia's kind of reached the point where I don't think they even have a plan anymore.
So, okay, this then brings me on to the last question. So Javier Alvarez says, what do you think is Putler's endgame, Andrew? Will he take Trump's lifeline, or will he keep pushing until 2026?
Putin I don't think Putin understands what's going on in this war. Just like I don't think Trump understands what's going on.
I tend to agree with you.
They live in these information bubbles where they are kind of immune from reality.
Yeah.
And
100%.
Putin believes that Ukraine is like on its last legs and that just one more push will be enough to break them. And it's just not true. It's not reality.
But then the reality is he knows it's been going on for 3 years and he still hasn't succeeded. So while he might not, Putin this is, while he might not have a clue, you know, on a tactical, operational level what's going on, he must be deeply frustrated by the fact that, like, nothing's really happened for a year.
But, like, look at the Russian propaganda. Because I think a lot of that propaganda, I think a lot of it is what Putin actually thinks.
Right.
I think their propaganda is trying to brainwash everyone else into thinking the same way Putin does. He's trying to create a narrative in his own image of what he believes the world is.
Then you start getting onto funky, higher level sort of questions here about, okay, well, if he's brainwashed himself, who's he brainwashed by?
Himself.
You know, who's really who's really running things? Because there will be the military who do know what are going on, right? There's got to be some level of reality recognition somewhere in Russia.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is that Russia has this culture where you always have to shift the blame to someone else because you don't want the blame to fall on you. So like no matter how much you accept reality, you have to shift the blame. So like this is why like Russian morale is so bad, because the infantry, they know that their commander knows what's going on because they know their commander, they work with the commander every day. So but the commander still forces them to go on suicide missions. So the commander is being told like attack or else. So he's like, okay, then I guess we attack, you know? So like every step of the way, the military is going to cover their own butt all the way to the top, where the guy at the top is telling Putin like everything's going great. And you see this a lot in the military where they say they declare that they captured a town that they haven't even attacked yet.
Yeah. And I've reported on that an awful lot. Yeah. And
then they have to attack it over and over and over again, no matter how hopeless it is, because they've already captured it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like these situations. Like I don't think Putin lives in reality. I don't think Trump lives in reality. I don't think these people fully comprehend what's going on. And Trump is trying to bring everyone else to his side of like rejecting what's actually happening. And this is why like we spend a lot of time trying to convince politicians around Europe of what's actually happening, and giving them video evidence and you know, actual facts and you know, things like that, so they can actually see what's happening, because the propaganda is trying so desperately to paint an image that isn't reality and really has like no basis in reality. They want everyone to think that Russia is still extremely powerful and that Ukraine is about to collapse, and any minute now they will collapse, and they're stupid because every day Russia advances, but they never address the actual problems that Russia has, where their economy is trash, they're running out of equipment, they've become completely dependent on other nations supplying them military aid. Like I actually think at this point Russia is more dependent on foreign aid than Ukraine is.
Yeah,
And
I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
So, and there are like in theory, like if we were playing our cards right, there are things we could probably do to really cripple Russia at this point, because North Korea is doing a lot to help Russia.
Yeah.
But North Korea at the same time is very reliant on China. And China is kind of in a bad spot right now. And if we had the leadership, we could probably come to agreements with China to make them handle North Korea.
And that was starting to, not with regard to North Korea, but that was happening with regard to secondary sanctions. So I think Janet Yellen and the Treasury Department under Biden actually did a pretty good job. It was a difficult job. It requires global, influence that's very difficult to keep on top of, because your loopholes are always turning out and then you have to close out. It's a game of like kind of global whack-a-mole. But I think actually the US Treasury Department was starting to have an effect on India and China with regard to secondary sanctions, where banks and ports were stopping taking Russian oil and doing transactions. And then Trump came along, and it appears to like that's where Trump could have won this like that easily. He had all the tools to, like you say, to screw over. I mean, you can talk about North Korea, but I'd say to influence China. Instead, what he's done is start a trade war with everyone and just give Russia as much breathing room as they could possibly want. It's just insanity, and it annoys the hell out of me.
But yeah, so like we do have the levers to really damage Russia, but we're just not using them. And because I really think that if we went to China and we basically said, like, if we gave them a list of demands, and the demands were things like, stop North Korea from sending aid to Russia, and we will give you XYZ, and if you stop this, we'll do this. If you came up with a rational list of demands where each side could win and each side would have something to be happy about, I think you could get China to go along with it, and then that would totally cripple Russia. But we don't have leaders who like do rational things. Like, our leaders are more like into hoping for the best and doing nothing. And what's really like disappointing about Europe is that
it's hungry. That's what's really disappointing about Europe. It's bloody hungry. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Trump is doing a strategy on Europe that's actually pretty genius, and it's unfortunate that's working so well. So this is what Trump is doing. Trump is basically doing exactly what he wants in Europe, which is to completely withdraw from Europe. But every once in a while, like every month or 2 months or whatever, he will call up a European leader or go visit one or whatever, and he'll tell them exactly what they want to hear. And then as soon as they leave, he'll go back to doing whatever he wants to do. And that little piece of hope that he dangles on Europe every few weeks is what is paralyzing Europe into refusing to accept that their relationship with the US is dead. Okay, so and this, I wish Europe at some point would catch on to what he's doing, but they have this hope, this eternal hope that everything will go back to normal, but it's not going to.
No, I think, Europe just need to be done with the US and be a bit more like China, actually, in flexing a bit. And there are talks that I was listening to some analysis last night say, actually, there are a load of cards that Europe have. And they've actually not played the cards, but they've showed the cards. They said, look, this is what we are going to do if you're going to get if things aren't going to go right in the next 90 days of negotiations. But I would be inclined to just say screw negotiations, guys. But then, of course, that's going to hurt people. None of this is good. There are no options that are good. But China, I was saying earlier in the video, Andrew, China have loads of cards on the US, and China will win a trade war with the US. They are a dictatorship, so they can suffer much more than the US can as a democracy. And actually, they hold loads of things over the US that the US hadn't, I think, realized quite properly enough. And I think it was a very ill-advised decision to start a global trade war anyway, but particularly with China. But what they are achieving is what both sides want, which is, well, I don't think the US wanted Europe to go towards China, but they did want a kind of Europe to go their own way, and China and Russia wanted Europe to be torn away from the US, and that's exactly what's happening. So in a sense, like, both sides are getting what they want, but I don't think that's really what the US wants outside of the Trump orbit. But anyway, yeah. So I digress. Look, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a long 10 minutes, and I love it. I love you for it. Crazy times at the moment. I really appreciate all of your loss lists when they do come out. I know, is it just a matter of being insanely overworked?
Yeah, I mean, sometime in like January, the amount of work we do on a daily basis like doubled. So like we were like doing as much as physically possible, and then it doubled. So like like we were doing, like, on average we were doing like 750 lines a day, and now we're doing like 12 or 1300 lines a day. And it's just like so many videos. Like we used to be doing like 160 videos a day, and now we're doing like 300 a day. So it's just like the insanity of how much more content there is now versus
why is that? So is it just, it's now both sides are just releasing? It's not that there's any more activity, they're just for some reason releasing more.
Honestly, I think it's because we keep drawing attention to things, it makes them want to post more. So like, for example, like Artem, he wrote his article on drone interceptions, and when he wrote his article on drone interceptions, it made Ukraine go like, oh, we have more videos, so they started posting more. And then he wrote another article on drone interceptions, and then the Russians were like, you know what, we have some videos too. So now the Russians post them, and it's like every time he writes an article, we like get twice as many videos. Okay.
Damn it.
So yeah, this is what happens. It's like the more attention we bring to things, the more it gets posted of that thing, because people are like, oh, we do that too, so so yeah,
fair
it's
enough.
And now we have to be very careful that there's some channels that have practices that we don't enjoy, like, for example, having a 90-second video with 100 events in it. We don't like that because it's very stressful. So we don't want to bring attention to those channels, because we don't want more channels to edit like that, because it's really annoying. So like we want to.
Well, that's Robert Magyar though. That's what he does.
I know, it hurts. It hurts. Now he doesn't even, have you seen his videos? He doesn't even show one event at a time anymore. Now he shows 9 at a time.
What, in a tile?
Yeah.
Jesus wept.
Do you know how hard it is to go through that? It's a lot.
Soul destroying. Do you still need help from people? And I know it's a difficult thing, and it's a kind of it's not for everyone. The sort of work that you and your team do, and it's very kind of samey, I assume. But it's also really, really important. Is there any way that people can help? Do you want help?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely things we need help with. I mean, with regards to videos, it's really hard, because we desperately need help, but we also need help from people who can actually help, and it takes like it's a really huge commitment. There are like lesser things that